Starting with this Torah reading, we've entered a new phase in the Torah. We moved away from the narrative stories towards the law codes. And the law codes take up the majority of the rest of the Torah. Now, I don't have to tell you that many people don't appreciate these parshiot, starting with today's parsha, Mishpatim, which means laws or statutes. In fact, the Reader Digest Bible eliminates all these chapters except chapter 19, the Holiness Code in the book of Leviticus. Far too often, Jewish laws contrasted with Christian grace. Some Christians believe that the Torah is impossible to follow, as is described in the book of Acts, a yoke that neither our ancestors nor us have been able to bear, as opposed to Jesus' quote-unquote easy yoke. In actuality, we don't find Torah observance any more burdensome than we do observing American law. In fact, the Torah says, "Ki mitzvah zot asher anochi mitzvacha hayom lo nefreitihi mimcha." Surely, this commandment that I command you this day is not too hard for you. Furthermore, the United States, and probably the state of New York, and the city of New York, have more laws on the books than there are in all the ancient Jewish sources combined. We don't follow Torah, the laws, in order to earn divine love or salvation. The Mishnah and Sanhedrin teaches, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chel b'olam haba. All of Israel has a share in the world to come, is part of the covenant. Divine love is already present. It isn't earned. Observance of the mitzvot is just part and parcel of that covenant. What I find really interesting about biblical law is that biblical law is unique amongst all the other ancient Near Eastern code laws. As we know in Genesis, we're created B'Tselem Elohim, in God's image. And because we're created B'Tselem Elohim, it confers upon us the highest value over all other creatures. This hierarchy means that humans may kill animals to eat or for sacrifice alone, but no animal may ever kill a human being. A beast that kills a human destroys the image of God and must give a reckoning for it. That explains why a goring ox in this morning's Torah portion must be put to death. V'chi yigach shor et ish or isha v'met, so kol yisakel hashor. When an ox gores a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned. This ox is so abhorrent that we're not even allowed to eat its meat. Moshe Greenberg, an American rabbi, a conservative rabbi, a biblical scholar who passed away in the year 210, was the head of the biblical department at Hebrew University. He writes, Babylonian law on the subject reflects no such theory as to the guilt of a particular value of human life imposes upon those who take it. Babylonian laws are concerned with the safeguarding rights and property and making losses good. It therefore deals only with the liability of the owner of the ox for the damages caused by that ox. The ox is of no concern to the law, since no liabilities are attached to it. The uniqueness and the supremacy of human life means compensation of any kind is ruled out. Greenberg continues, the guilt of the murderer is infinite because the murdered life is invaluable. The kinsmen of the slain man aren't competent to say when he's been paid for. Murder, an absolute wrong has been committed. It's a sin against God, which isn't subject to human discussion. Consequently, our Torah portion commands, Makeh ish v'met mot yumat. He who fatally strikes a man shall be put to death. When a man schemes against another and kills him treacherously, you shall take him from my very altar to be put to death. In contradistinction, ancient Near Eastern law allows and at times fixes a value on lives and leaves it up to the kinsmen of the slain to decide to take compensation through money or property or to take revenge. Another distinction between biblical law and ancient Near Eastern law concerns property. Both Assyrian and Babylonian law knows of offenses against property that entail the death penalty. Once again, in our Parsha, chapter 22, prescribes no property offense is punishable by death. One last observation I'd like to share with you about biblical law is that no person is above the law. Until relatively recently in the Western world, all kings were above the law. In fact, the king's word was the law. Remember the movie The History of the World Part 2? Mel Brooks, as Louis XVI, did whatever he did, and afterwards he said, "It's good to be king." On the other hand, Jewish kings were subject to the law. After King David's affair with Bathsheba and her becoming pregnant, to hide his guilt, he sends her soldier husband, Uriah, to a raging battle to the front lines to ensure his death. He thinks he has escaped detection. However, Nathan the prophet confronts him saying, "Why have you flouted God's command and done what displeases God? You have put Uriah the Hittite to the sword. You took his wife and made her your wife, and had him killed by the sword of the Ammonites." After telling David how God is going to punish him, David says to Nathan, "Chatati Lashem, I stand guilty before God." Because David admitted his guilt, God remitted his sin. He didn't die. But let me tell you, if you continue to read the David stories, he was punished in many different ways. Another example, one of the most evil kings in Israel, in God's sight, was King Ahab, or in Hebrew, Achav. Achav probably considered the prophets, including Elijah, in his time, domestic terrorists, for he killed 400 of them. After confronting him several times, Elijah had to flee to the wilderness to save his life. Elijah returns after Achav manipulates his wife Jezebel into taking action against Naboth, who wouldn't sell his property to the king, ensuring that she would assume the blame while he would appear innocent. Elijah confronts him and tells him that God won't let his crimes go unpunished. Upon hearing his fate, he rent his clothes and put sackcloth on his body. He fasted and walked subdued. Because he repented, God decided not to bring the disaster in his lifetime, but bring the disaster upon his house in his son's time. But his co-conspirator, who never did tshuva, Jezebel, suffered a most gruesome death. For all these reasons I have enumerated and more, our sages have always prized the law. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akshaya Omer, Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu l'sakot et Yisrael, lefichach hirbeh lahem Torah mitzvot, shene'amar, Hashem chafetz l'man siko, yagdil Torah v'yadir. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akshaya said, it pleased the Holy Blessed One to grant merit to Israel. That's why he gave them the Torah and commandments in abundance and said, the Lord was pleased for his righteousness to make Torah great and glorious. As we continue our journey throughout the Torah and study the laws, may we merit limod, to study, lelamed, to teach, ulishmor, to observe the Torah and its mitzvot in our own day, in our own way. Shabbat shalom, everybody.